All right, good afternoon and welcome to PTX, Prescient Therapeutics shareholder briefing. My name's David Sellers. I'm the Executive Director, head up the Equity Capital Markets team here at Reach Markets, and I'll be facilitating today's webcast. I'm joined by Steven Yatomi-Clarke, CEO and President. Thank you for coming along, and thank you for everyone in attendance today as well. So look, the purpose of today's session is just to provide a company update. Steven will go through and discuss the progress of Prescient's vision to be a global leader in bringing personalised therapies to cancer patients and to provide an overview of its diversified really and cutting edge projects and pipelines there. We're expecting this session to sort of run for about 30 minutes, maybe an extra 10-15 minutes just to include some question times at the end. All right, so look, just a couple of quick housekeeping matters. We want to keep these sessions interactive, so please type any question into the question box. There should be a little red arrow in the top right-hand corner of your screen if you're on a desktop. Just type your questions in, we'll come to them at the end. If you're on your tablet or your mobile, there should be a little question mark at the bottom of your screen there. Please type in any questions and we'll pose them straight to Steven for response. Look, any information contained in today's presentation is general in nature, does not consider your personal circumstances. You need to decide if it is appropriate to you. The presentation that Reach is putting forward is really suitable for self-directed investors. The information is, educational purposes only, and past performance not an indicator of future performance. So Prescient, look, Prescient is a company we've been working with for quite some time, and we're very supportive of. They take cancer from being a conversation, from fight to a cure with its next generation CAR T therapies. The company's clinical trials are progressing through a next generation CAR T therapies, place it at the forefront of the fastest growing area in cancer treatment we're seeing in the marketplace. So that next gen CAR T platform, or OmniCAR, it's really seeking to take CAR T therapy to that next level there. So they're obviously in collaboration with a number of bodies out there, which I think Steven will cover off today. So look, Steven, you took over as CEO of Prescient Therapeutics in 2016, has overseen its progression really since startup phase. Managing a team in Australia and the US, and it's really been instrumental in the strategy and the business development since then. When we've been working with them since the early stages. It's good to see them grow out to the way that they have. Look, I can keep talking about it, but I think it's best I probably just hand over to you now, Steven. You should have control of the presentation now.
Thank you very much, and thanks everyone for your time, and thanks for the introduction, and for everyone's time this morning to hear about Prescient. I understand it could be a blended audience today, some people who want to learn about Prescient for the first time and others who might have heard my voice several times talking about this. So bear with me, there'll be something for everyone, for those who don't know about us and those who do. So just to introduce the company for its highlights, the business model at Prescient, for those that know, is pretty simple. You license the technology from the best you can in the world, and then you work with the best you can in the world, and that's our model. But lots of shots on goal. You'll see our pipeline in a minute. We've got a diversified pipeline that's consisting of PTX 100 and 200, which are drugs in the clinic right now. And either of those is a company maker, and I'm going to spend some time talking about this brand new platform in a whole new area of therapy, of cancer therapy and other types of therapies called cell therapy. And it's given rise to 3 in-house programs, but is a platform that can actually enable third parties as well. Next slide, please, or try to hand over again. So a corporate snapshot of Prescient. Still capped at over $100 million now. and we've had a bit of a dip in line with the market, unfortunately. But as one of my former mentors said, you buy quality on the dips. And I think a fair question that some people might be asking is, given the share price movement, especially in the last week or so, is there anything wrong with Prescient? Has there been any changes? And the answer is an overwhelming no. In fact, we've never been in a better position than we are now. So a great time to be getting in. You'll hear all about why we're confident on this, and we're hoping that some of the macro turmoil that the market's facing, the market's a forward-looking beast, and hopefully this represents quite an interesting buying opportunity for some people. So that's our pipeline. I think the take-home message there, it looks quite busy. That's because we are busy. We're a company capped at 100 million, but this is a pipeline of really a much bigger company. So that's great for shareholders because you've got a lot of horses running in the cup. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about the ones in green at the bottom there. So they're targeted therapies. These are therapies that target problematic proteins inside of a cancer cell that go haywire, and when they go haywire, the cell does not know when to stop dividing, which is the definition of cancer. Targeted therapies are a way of directly inhibiting those problematic proteins and bringing those under control and killing the cancer cell. And the other categories there in blue and yellow are CAR T and cell therapies. As the name suggests, cell therapies are using living cells as a medicine, which is a brand new sort of frontier in cancer treatment, and we find ourselves right at the forefront of that. Not going to disclose the yellow ones, the cell therapy enhancements. We're working on those in stealth mode. It's due to come out of stealth mode soon for patent and commercial reasons. But I can't wait to tell you about OmniCAR. So I'm going to kick off talking about PTX 100 and 200, please. The first one, PTX 100, we had this is in the clinic right now, Australia's foremost cancer specialist, that is Professor Miles Prince, is leading that study, and we had a great safety result out of that one. There were no serious adverse events, but saw 2 really good clinical responses that we didn't expect to see. Normally in these types of diseases, you're very lucky as a patient if you get a response, or if you get a response at all, and if that response lasts more than 3 months, maybe 4 months. And we saw one of them on the trial for 12 months, and another one, it's going up to about 2 years. So that is certainly raised the eyebrows, and we're honing in on this sweet spot now. And next slide, please. So where to from here? We're doing an expansion cohort in T-cell lymphomas, honing in on that sweet spot. That, as we mentioned at our AGM and in our last quarterly, anyone that's been to a supermarket in the last 4 months would realise there's been logistics issues and all up the supply chain, and drug manufacturing is no different. So we had, as our CMC guy said, he's never seen it so bad in 20 years. So the bottlenecks everywhere trying to manufacture more of this drug, even though we got our slot ages ago. There was just our suppliers needed suppliers who needed suppliers. Anyway, the good news is all of this is now behind us, as we said in our AGM and last quarterly. So drugs luckily finally been made, so we bumped ourselves up in the queue, and that is being delivered right now, and Miles Prince is raring to go. So what does this mean so far as this study, this expansion cohort? Think of it like it's a phase 2 trial, which is a prelude to a registration study. So if we get a good signal in this, then this will lead us to basically the definitive study that would see this drug go to approval. So we're all about the shortest path to market. If we're successful in this indication, and fingers crossed we are, then we can always expand out into other indications as well. So I will tell you a little bit about peripheral T-cell lymphoma. It's an awful type of blood cancer. It is an unmet clinical need. You can see there a good case study there if you want to see what's the size of the prize. Is a drug called pralatrexate, or the brand name is Folliton. There's less than 6,000 cases in the US a year, but you can see that's at about 500,000 per patient per year. It's a small, but it's a high value market. and is poorly served, and pralatrexate was approved on a very low hurdle. So once again, we feel that not only are we hitting a sweet spot, hopefully in terms of the mechanism of action and the clinical signal that we're seeing, but also the market forces where it's still a disease of unmet need and precious little competition and very high value opportunity. So we'll be kicking this expansion cohort off imminently now that we've got the drug here and we're ready to go, and we're screening for patients now. So you can expect news on this trial very shortly. We've got another molecule in the targeted therapy space called PTX 200. This targets a different aberrant protein called AKT, and we are progressing this in, we've had previously done breast cancer and ovarian cancer, now doing acute myeloid leukemia, where in this particular setting, unfortunately, patients are dead once they relapse within anywhere between 4 to 6 months, something like that, 9 months if you're very lucky, from becoming refractory. So it's a disease that progresses very, very aggressively and mutates very aggressively. And luckily, we've had 3 complete responses on that trial so far. So that's wonderful. So this is a combination therapy, so we've got to use it in combination with chemo. For those that have followed this particular trial for a little while, it's been stop-start because we're having some drug-drug interactions. These 2 drugs, if you like, were bumping into one another and creating side effects that we hadn't seen before with the drug by themselves, things like stomatitis and appendicitis, weird things we didn't see using PTX 200 alone. But we've rejigged the protocol, and we've not seen any of those subsequently since we last rejigged that. Anyway, this is currently escalating. This is now at 45 milligrams per meter squared and is ongoing right now as well. We've got orphan drug designation from the US FDA for PTX 200, which gives you a moat around the business, gives you some advantages on the way towards commercialization, and once it's commercialized, gives you a good market exclusivity for 7 years, which is a very, very good position to be in. Next slide, please. So I've just described targeted therapies with targeting things inside the cell. I'm going to switch gears now and talk about cell therapy, and the CAR-T process is here on this slide. Basically, it's a way of taking a patient's own immune cells and putting a new receptor on these that are now able to recognize cancer, and this is called a CAR-T cell. So whenever you hear me say a CAR-T cell, it is basically a patient's own immune cells that have been taken out of the body, reprogrammed to recognize and attack cancer, and millions of these are grown up and given back to the patient. And this made headlines around the world a couple of weeks ago, or this time last month, should I say, when Carl June, the pioneer of CAR-T, he used a word that no one has dared use in the history of medicine, and that's the word cure when it comes to cancer. And from a trial that he pioneered 10 years ago, those patients remain, a couple of those patients there with a certain type of leukemia remain cancer-free. And it is no small thing for very conservative clinician scientists to say we can conclude that these can cure patients. And what a wonderful thing to be able to say, that instead of talking about extending life by a few months or a few weeks in some cases, or shrinking a tumour and trying it, hoping it doesn't rebound quickly, forget about that. They're swinging for the fences now and saying we can actually have curative intent. And the good thing about this is with technology that is now 10 years old. So imagine what we can do with next generation therapies, and that is where we come into it. It's an incredibly, incredibly exciting time. It's not science fiction. Penn, where Professor Carl June is from, they pioneered CAR-T therapy. Novartis were the first to latch onto this and license it. That little bag of cells, single infusion for half a million dollars. It's given rise to 5 other therapies have now been approved by the FDA. Many of these are available here in Australia and are subsidised here for patients. Hundreds of patients treated here successfully in Australia. So it is here and now and moving very, very fast. So it is not science fiction. This is a tried and true way of treating patients, and there's enough patients being successfully treated now that it is definitely here to stay. But like any brand new technology, the first iteration is the most problematic. And we've seen that with many, many technologies. Think of the first iPhone, think of the first personal computer, think of the first, the VCRs, and that's where CAR-T is, and as wonderful as it is. And these are some of the problems that we've got to overcome if we want to bring this potentially curative therapy to more patients and more cancers. This is just a summary of some of the problems that we're going to have to overcome. It's a very expensive and time-consuming therapy to make. Importantly, the safety and control. These therapies, they're living cells, right? So you inject them into a patient and they start dividing without any control. And overnight, unfortunately, we saw another company treating solid tumours had another death on their study on the back of, we've seen this in the news, unfortunately, too often in CAR-T trials, especially for solid tumours. So blood cancers is one thing, but in solid tumours, we've seen some of these therapies get so vigorous that they actually kill the patient. So what we have to do is make them safer and make them controllable in order to bring these to more patients. Targets and exhaustion, that's basically what do we direct these CAR T cells against? What do we tell it to attack? Exhaustion, these things are, often they treat it like a sprint and they get puffed out when really it's a marathon. You need these cells to hang around and do their job. And escape, how do you prevent what happens if the tumour mutates and all of a sudden, your current target doesn't work? Then the tumour is growing unchecked and you've got all of the side effects of an ongoing CAR-T therapy, but none of the benefits. And this is where we come into it, by treating not one, but all of these problems, and by doing so, bringing this therapy to many more patients, many more cancers. So the very same people who pioneered CAR-T, that's the University of Pennsylvania, saw all of these problems and said, we need to deliberately come together across multiple disciplines and try to solve this problem. And they came up with this brilliant modular system. And you'll see in a moment, the team will play a video, but it's a modular system. By modularizing it, you give yourself control and flexibility. But the other thing you'll see soon, it is a genuine platform. We're not touting one particular cell type. We're not touting one particular target. We are a platform that can work with any cancer target and any targeting ligand and any type of immune cell, which means that basically you're not being asked to back a winner here. We can work with anyone on any target on any cell type. So we're really selling shovels during a gold rush here. So if I can ask the Reach team to play the video, I've got a little explanatory video that will explain how it works and how this modularity gives rise to all sorts of benefits that are really going to bring this to many more patients.
CAR-T therapy is proving to be revolutionary in cancer treatment, with unprecedented patient responses in certain blood cancers. But CAR-T is not without its challenges, including an inability to control lytic activity post-infusion and to direct CAR-T cells at will. And if the tumour mutates and loses its antigen, the CAR-T is now rendered useless, without a target and unable to be redirected. Prescient's OmniCAR is seeking to address the safety and efficacy limitations of existing cell therapies, using technology licensed from the University of Pennsylvania and Oxford University. OmniCAR combines the unparalleled cancer-killing properties of an immune cell with the control and predictability of a conventional medicine. OmniCAR is a modular CAR system that separates the signaling domain and targeting domains. Administration of the targeting domain enables controllable cell activity, full control of immune synapse, and on-demand tumor lysis. OmniCAR has the ability to utilize any cell type, autologous or allogeneic, T cells, NK cells, iPSC-derived cells, or other immune cells. Furthermore, OmniCAR can tag any targeted ligand against any antigen, including antibodies, scFvs, aptamers, or small molecules. By increasing the administration of the binder, CAR-T activity can be titrated to safe and efficacious levels. Furthermore, CAR-T activity can be switched off by ceasing binder administration without terminating the entire therapy. Importantly, Ongoing administration of binders can provide ongoing stimulation of CAR T cells without expensive and time-consuming manufacturing of subsequent CAR T cell production. OmniCAR enables CAR T to be redirected to tumor antigens of choice by simply administering alternative binders without manufacturing subsequent cell products. Moreover, OmniCAR can enable a single cell product to be armed with several different binders at once to target an array of tumor antigens. OmniCAR enables CAR immune cells to overcome issues such as trafficking to the tumor and an immune-suppressive tumor microenvironment.
So hopefully that explains how OmniCAR works, how its modular system can make things safer, and by making it safer can bring it to more patients. And just to highlight, think of it like this. Imagine if someone was producing a fantastic race car, but only a Formula One driver can drive it. Like, that doesn't benefit most of the drivers on the road. And really, that's where CAR T therapy is. To even receive these therapies in the first place, a patient has to be given an intensive care unit bed just to receive the therapy, and all they can do now is treat the symptoms. If a patient has a bad reaction, all they can do is treat the symptoms, because these are living cells going out of control inside the patient's body. So not only can we treat this safety issue, but we can also treat all of these flexibility requirements that you need to target a whole bunch of different tumours. So as wonderful as current CAR T is, that's it there on the left. It's a soldier in the immune system fighting cancer, but that soldier's only got one map and one weapon and can't be redirected or controlled. That's a current CAR T cell. That's some would argue a good soldier to have. Some would argue that's a dangerous soldier to have. In any case, OmniCAR is the soldier there on the right that can be armed with any weapon, including several at once, and any map against any targets, including multiple maps and multiple targets, and full communication and control, and even send images back. So that you can see just in this one slide how we are taking it to the next level by making it safer, by making it controllable. We're able to treat many more patients, not just the sickest of the sick, and not just in one particular type of blood cancer. This can really open up the whole game for everyone. So I don't have time to go into all of the in-house programs, but in blue there you'll see our business model. We are definitely progressing 3 in-house programs. One is for a blood cancer called AML, another one is in HER2 positive solid tumours, and another one is in an aggressive type of brain cancer called GBM. And each of these indications we've selected very strategically. They are characterised by unmet need or poorly met need. They are, it is where current CAR T has hoped to work, except it had a couple of stumbling blocks that first generation could not overcome, and where OmniCAR can overcome those and really make a difference where other CAR Ts are stumbling. And that is the difference. That's our key differentiator across all of those programs that other programs around the world just simply don't have. But over and above our in-house programs, in green there you'll be able to see we can collaborate with any external party, regardless of their target or construct or cell type. So for example, there might be a company out there thinking, hey everyone, our particular cell type, it's going to win. It's the best type of cell to use for cell therapy. Fantastic. Let's come talk to us and we can modularize your system, make it scalable, make it safer, and make it multivalent, be able to target any cancer. Or someone might be saying, I've got a fantastic target. I've decided what part of the cancer cell I'm going to target and that's going to win. Good on you. Come to us, we can modularize it and do the same thing as I said before, make it safer, make it controllable, make it multivalent. So not only are we going to be progressing our differentiated programs, but we can work with external parties regardless of what they're working with. And that's a really, really important position to be in, because otherwise it's very difficult for investors to say, well, there's a lot of choice out there, a lot of people working in this space. How do I pick a winner? You don't need to pick a winner if you've got a platform that can enable everyone. I'm going to show a couple of slides showing how unique this is. Don't get bogged down on too much detail here. I'll walk you through the next 3 slides. So what we've got there on the left is some mice. What it shows is when you give either a vehicle or an unarmed cell, the tumour keeps growing, and that's exactly as you would expect. But as soon as you add a binder, the tumour starts to disappear because the cells are switched on, and the more binder you give, the more the system switches on, and you get a proportionate survival. So basically the take-home message of this slide is, despite the fact that it's a living cell, you've got the controllability and the flexibility that doctors and scientists would expect from previous drugs, from drugs that you're used to popping a pill or injecting it into an infusion bag or whatnot. It's you're combining the unparalleled cancer killing properties of that cell, but with the control and the flexibility of a predictability of a regular medicine, and that's fantastic. So this was a world first experiment that we were able to demonstrate, is that you can actually rearm these cells. So the first ones there in green, we took our cells and threw them into some tumours that overexpressed HER2, and you can see a really nice curve. It killed the cancer cells in a very controlled, proportionate manner. You don't want it too steep, you don't want it too flat, you want it just right, and this was the Goldilocks textbook curve that you'd want to see. But here's the thing, we took those cells, we washed them and rested them, and then all we did was throw in the binder. There were no new cells given here. And look what happened. You were able to, it was able to kill the same group of cells again. And not only was it able to kill to the same level, but the kinetics, the steepness of the curve was the same as well. So the bottom line from this is a very controllable and predictable and obedient system. So it's very obedient. So you can give the cells once and keep rearming them, and it behaves the same way each time. So this was a world first. This is really cool. So this is, and bear with me because there's a bit going on in this slide, but it's important. This is showing redirection. So basically there's two types of brain cancer cells. I wish I had control of this slide. You guys are going too fast. But anyway, there's two types of brain cancer cells were put into a mix, and one type of OmniCAR was given, and bang, it started killing that one particular type of cancer cell, and it left the other one alone. Why? Because it wasn't armed against it. And at 20 hours, we put in the second binder. All we did was drop in another binder. We did not do any, there's no new cells, and something amazing happened. Again, a world first that had never happened. It started killing the other cells as soon as you put in the second binder. So you can progress with the slides, and I'll walk everyone through the rest of this slide. Thanks, guys. So basically, this is showing you add one binder, it kills one type of cancer cell and safely leaves the other one alone. But as soon as you direct it by adding in the binder, like a remote control, bang, it is switching and it is killing the other one. So rapid switching and rapid cancer killing. So it's showing that we can direct these, a single T cell, like a remote control, from one target on the cancer to another without any new cells. And that's pretty amazing stuff. So this is another advantage here. With conventional CAR T, it can be very, very bespoke. If Rich can run maybe halfway through this slide, that'd be great. So each time you make a CAR T cell, it's going to cost, it's about $300,000 to $400,000 to make an individual run. And especially in solid tumours, you might need multiple runs. And if your cancer has different targets on it, you want to target multiple targets on the cancer instead of just one, and that's what it's going to take to win. Then you have to make all of these cells individually. Now look at here, you've got 6 times, let's say $300,000. It's extremely expensive. It's very time consuming. Each run is 22 days. Some patients don't have that long, and you can't direct it. You can see how that's prohibitive. Whereas with OmniCAR, here's what we can do. You give the cell once, and that could be off the shelf, or it could be autologous, and then you're adding your binders, and you just saw that in a couple of other slides. And these binders are very cheap, and you can have great variation in what you're targeting. So much cheaper. There's no time delay. Just drop them straight into administer them straight to the patient. And here's the thing, you can direct them against multiple targets. And as I said earlier, that is what it's going to take to win, especially in solid cancers. It's not going to be about one target. It's going to be about hitting multiple targets. So you can see here, even from a logistics and COGS perspective, that OmniCAR is going to be the future. Next slide, please. So people are asking, where are we going with all of this? Well, we all know what Apple did with their ecosystem and how they pulled together and merged for the first time sort of consumer devices and online services. Never before in medicine has this happened. It's only happened in consumer tech and a few other areas. And we firmly believe that OmniCAR has the capability to basically do for cell therapies and for cancer treatments what Apple has done for consumer electronics. And it is the unique features of OmniCAR that only OmniCAR can do. So next slide, please. We see a patient-centric ecosystem where OmniCAR is at its heart. And step one, the patient goes to the doctor, their tumour gets sampled, they get a biopsy, and the doctor will determine the mutational profile of that cancer. To be clear, step one happens today. Okay, so that is no change to any paradigm. That happens today already. And more antigens are being added to these panels as we learn more about cancers. So that's already happening. But rather than having to pick a therapy off the shelf, we've got to pick one target and hope that that one target amongst that battery of tumours works. No, here's what's going to happen. The doctor will look at that patient report and say, okay, I need from the library of OmniCAR binders, I need binders 1, 2 and 5, and they pick them off the shelf and they plug them onto the OmniCAR cells like a plug and play, which is step 3, and step 4 is the patient is getting a therapy that is bespoke for them, that is bespoke for their cancer, and they're getting an absolute best of breed cell therapy. Normally you have personalization comes at the expense of efficiency, not here. And here is the best thing. So yes, we're progressing our in-house programs, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, and across a number of different targets. So we're definitely doing that. But here's the thing, we can tag anyone's binder. If they're developing antibodies or affibodies or whatever it might be, small molecules, we can tag them, bang, they go into the App Store. Someone's working on a whiz-bang new cell, an off-the-shelf cell or an allo cell, or it could be a T cell, an NK cell, a macrophage, bang, you put them into the App Store. So we'll be putting the first apps into the App Store ourselves, but make no mistake, this is a plug-and-play approach that with OmniCAR at its heart is going to give patients a bespoke treatment with curative intent, and this is incredibly exciting and is turning a lot of heads where with people that we're speaking with that see the big picture here. This has never been done before. It's incredibly exciting. Okay, in the home stretch, so I've only really spoken about pillars 1 and 3 there. So OmniCAR, you've just heard about that and all the excitement around that. Cell therapy enhancements, as the name suggests, is we're working with Peter Mac. It's a way of enhancing current generation cell therapies, and if we're able to do that, it'll also be applicable for next generation cell therapies as well, and that'll be due to come out of stealth mode very shortly, and please stay tuned for more news on that. And we've got the targeted therapies in the clinic right now. And this is just a summary of some of the catalysts that we've got this year. Obviously, with a pipeline as deep as ours there's lots of overlapping news. News flow is great. Also, it's not just good from a risk diversification point of view, because if one horse falls over, you've got the other horses running in the race, but each one of these is a potential re-rating of the stock. So with the cell therapy enhancements, AML results, we're going to be kicking off this expansion cohort very shortly, and having a chat to Miles Prince about that in 2 days' time. He's very excited, and it just flows on from there. And some of these other world firsts that we're doing with OmniCAR as we march that towards the clinic, that is turning heads as well. So news on all of this and others is just a summary. Next slide, please. So yeah, we'll finish up where we started. World-class pedigree, lots of shots on goal, 2 drugs in the clinic, and really this next generation platform that puts us so far in front of the wave, it's not funny, and with the capabilities of doing things that other companies wish they could do but simply cannot. Not only for ourselves but with third parties as well, which gives us an opportunity to monetize this a lot sooner than would otherwise be possible with traditional therapies. And I thought I'd finish on an interesting slide. In a market like this, where do you start And a good place to start is a top-down analysis. Rather than bottom-up, there's lots of bottom-up analyses. People think a company's good for one particular reason or another. But you look at, so what's healthcare is one segment, one sector that, I wouldn't say it's recession-proof, but let's just say that there is always an insatiable desire for healthcare treatments, especially in life-threatening diseases. So what's the biggest market in healthcare? Well, it's easily oncology. Cancer treatments are 3 times, in 2019 was 3 times the size of the next biggest market. Then you look at, okay, in oncology, what's the fastest growing area? Well, you only have to look at headlines to realise that that's CAR T, and that's all data driven. So the spectacular results we're seeing in CAR T make it the fastest growing area within the biggest market. And then I'd be looking at that market and saying, okay, in this fastest growing area, who is at the forefront? And I would say that whoever is at the forefront of cell therapy has a therapy that is scalable, that is controllable, can target any cancer target and any immune cell. And this will overcome all of those problematic issues and that I've spent some time discussing earlier. And who has all of those? Well, Prescient has all of those. And I can't point to too many companies that are doing the same thing, and certainly not all of them. So from a top-down analysis, I think you can sleep at night if you have the discipline to funnel all of the decisions down. An investment in Prescient, I think, is very not only sensible but defensible. So the biggest market, the fastest growing area, and at the forefront of that area. And that is it, I believe. So many thanks and looking forward to your questions.
Fantastic, great. Thanks for going through that presentation there. Look, to stay up to date with Prescient Therapeutics company news and announcements, if you type PTX into your chat box, we'll keep you updated as they put anything out to market there. So, look, yeah, there are a number of questions coming through, so I'll just dive straight into them. Evan has asked, when do you think a large pharmaceutical may want to buy out PTX?
Yeah, very provocative question. I can see why people are asking. I understand that. The short answer is people do that always on the back of, well, it used to be on the back of clinical data, but we had one of our competitors, Xiphos, was snapped up for $665 million by Astellas at the same stage of development, which is preclinical. So it is about, I showed you a very, that picture at the start, with that big wave. There's one advantage being at that front of that wave is that, you're ahead of the pack. The disadvantage is you've got to wait for that wave to catch up to you. And that's where we find ourselves having conversations with companies who say, we can see how this is very, very valuable. We've got to work out which program we fit this with, or it looks like one of our programs now looks like it's redundant. Do we stop that? So they're all of the conversations we're having now. We're doing everything you would expect us to do from a BD perspective. We've got Dan Shelley in the US, full-time BD guy. Dan's card is so full, it is not freaking funny. But all we can do, I don't like business models that rely on acquisitions, because I think a business model should need to stand on its own 2 feet. And you know what, if an offer comes along, that's fantastic, but you're not relying on it. And that's where we find ourselves. We're trying to control our own destiny, having all of the conversations we're having. Believe me, we're having lots of conversations. Everyone at every conference we go to wants to speak with us. And we'll keep doing what we're doing, and if something pops along, wonderful. If not, we don't need anyone to deliver value.
Okay, fantastic. If you haven't typed your question in, please type it in, and we'll go through them all now. John has asked, which drugs or products are likely to phase to trial and likely to proceed?
That's a bit of a, I'm not quite sure I understand that. So let me get to what I think the spirit of the question is. The closest one to the phase 2 trial right now is the PTX 100 study, right? So that is in the equivalent. Normally, It's an equivalent of a phase 2, if you like, because traditional drug development is phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Phase 1, is it safe? Phase 2 is does it look like it's working? And phase 3 is it definitively working, and how well, and is it better than what's out there? And if you finish all 3 phases, you go to the FDA or a regulatory authority, and they will either approve you or for sale or not. So when you're treating a disease that is poorly met and is small, like say PTCL, this is why one of the good reasons we chose it, that whole time scale is truncated considerably. So we're doing now an expansion cohort, which would be like a proxy for a small phase 2, and if that's successful, that leads into a small registration study, which would be like the equivalent, to use the analogy, of a phase 3, except like a quarter or a fifth of the size. So that's where I find it. So that's probably the closest one. I think that was the answer to the question.
Okay, fantastic. Look, John, if that doesn't really answer your question, just retype your question in and I'll circle back around to it. All right, Scott, once the 3 in-house stealth come out, what is the timeline and pathway forward?
So the stealth mode ones, that's not the 3 programs. So the 3 programs are OmniCAR. They're not in stealth mode. So that is AML, GBM, and HER2 positive solid tumours. So we've put out a little bit of data on that already in Q3, Q4 last year, and I showed you a summary of some of that data, that world first data, and that was mostly in HER2. And in GBM, we're running some pretty cool experiments right now on AML, so you'll hear about those throughout this year. With the stealth mode ones in Peter Mac, that is, so we're due to come out of that. We're just finishing off some experiments, and we will be, we'll be disclosing that shortly. What's the intention with that? So again, we can, at the very, very least, we would like to plug that into our programs and enhance our own programs, and that can be the secret sauce in our own programs. It is about making these, let's say, hang around for longer and work a lot better, is basically the crux of what we're trying to do with Peter Mac, and we own all of that. That'd be a very different, in terms of external parties, what does that look like? It's quite a different type of partner base, I guess, than OmniCAR would be. These would be for people who already have CAR T trials that are not quite moving the needle enough, and they need to enhance those in order to get their efficacy and safety to where they need to be. And so we can help nudge those over the line and plug into other trials. So that will be that'll be the broad objective of that program. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. And Scott's just followed up with another question. Is there a use-by date for the PTX 100?
Don't know what that means. So there's I think that probably goes to the question on stability and the fact that it's taken so long to get this manufacturing slot. We've got stability studies running out for about 24 months. So once you make it, you've got a couple of years to use it. But we've used the one that we made a couple of years ago. It is still, we're doing ongoing stability, so it looks relatively stable. So does PTX 200 for that matter. So that's the benefit of a small molecule over a cell therapy, is that can sit in a vial for quite a while. Whereas a cell therapy, it's a little bit like sushi. You've got to use it while it's fresh, and after that, it's less attractive.
Right. Look, I'm not seeing too many more questions coming through, so if you do have any final questions, please type them into the chat box. As I mentioned earlier, if you'd like to be kept up to date with PTX news and announcements, just type PTX into the chat box, and we'll make sure that any future announcements that go out to market or presentations or anything else moving forward, you'll be kept abreast of as the company moves forward. Okay, so John has asked, are any of Prescient products usable in prostate cancer?
At the moment, no. Well, PTX 200 potentially, because that pathway that switches off has been described as being quite important in prostate cancer. I would dearly love to have a prostate cancer program eventually. We've got to find the right target. I'd like to have a cell therapy program in prostate cancer. I lost my father to prostate cancer a couple of years ago, and it's an awful disease. It takes the lives of too many men every single year, more than breast cancer, and something that is still poorly met. Look, there's many more therapies on the market now, which seem to do a reasonable job for those lucky patients who respond of extending their lives by often a number of months, but really I think prostate cancer is one of those that deserve companies to swing for the fences with curative intent. I'd love to be part of that one day.
Okay, perfect. Look, I've not seen too many other questions come through, but look, from our side, we think Prescient's an exciting opportunity, really sort of taking that conversation from fight to cure with its next generation CAR T therapies. You know, obviously the company, as you've heard, is clinical trials progressing towards next generation CAR T therapies, really put them at the forefront, of this fastest growing area in cancer treatment. Coming through. So look, I'm not seeing anything else come through at this stage. So everyone online, thank you for taking the time to come along today. Steven, thank you very much for taking the time to give us an update today. Look forward to hosting you on the next session, and I'll leave the last words with you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Look, it's as that top-down slide really said it all. We're in the biggest market, in the fastest growing area, and we're right at the forefront of that. You add to that our very astute cash management, our internal expertise, our collaborations. We're very excited. It's going to be a cracking year for us, as was last year. And thank you everyone for their support, and for those new shareholders, looking forward to welcoming you as well. So many thanks for your time.
Great. Thanks everyone. Enjoy the rest of the week.